So I remember being 8 or 9 years old. I had always grown up with health issues, like stomach issues, just not being well. And I remember about 8 or 9 years old is when it started to just progressively get worse. I started to develop headaches, which then turned into migraines. My stomach issues got worse and worse, and I also developed severe allergies to pretty much everything under the sun. But these last several months, I would say back in like February or March is when everything just completely declined. My migraines were so severe, it was every day waking up in just constant pain, eating Tylenol and Excedrin like it was candy just so I can function throughout my day. And that's when my trips to the hospital began more frequently because I wasn't able to eat. I was constantly nauseous. My stomach always hurt. It was like everything I would put in my body, my stomach couldn't handle, and it was a mess. And I honestly felt like I was dying. I could never eat. I'd never had thoughts of suicide, but I was to a point in my life, I was so sick. All I would do is just go to work. I had to quit school. I had to quit going to college because I got so sick. I would go to work, and when I was already exhausted and from just being in pain and sick all day, I would go to work, come home, and then I would just lay in bed. I had no energy to do anything else. I barely had energy to go to work. And when I did have a day off, I would just be so excited that I got to spend the entire day in bed. And I was introduced to this church by my Aunt Karen, who talked about she was healed from her cancer. And she told me, like, let's see what the enemy's doing to you. And I had no clue what that meant. And I walked in here not knowing what I was getting myself into. And
what did you do? You ran.
Yeah. I ran out crying. I was so scared.
Terrifying. Poor thing.
And it's funny because I actually had a dream the night before. I had no clue what deliverance was. I didn't know anything, but I had a dream. I was in a nightmare. I also suffer from nightmares frequently ever since I was a little kid. And I had this dream. I was in the middle of a nightmare and I recognized it and I said, God, why is this happening? Like, what is happening? And all of a sudden everything just stopped. And I was in this blank, like, white room, and there was this tall shadow figure standing in front of me. And there was a voice that said, this is what's tormenting you in your dreams. And I remember it like jumped inside of me. And I fell to my knees, I started crying, and I said, God, please help me, please save me. And I was taken up in this light. And I was just there, and it was like peaceful for a couple of seconds. And then I was brought back down in my body. And I saw this thing run, and it kind of like did a circle. And it ran for a bit, and then it started coming right back at me. But before it got too close, I woke up. And I told John about the dream and a couple of other things when he came over to the house to take my sister's testimony. And that's when we started the deliverances. And I've had 3 sessions now? And the last one was a complete breakthrough. I was here last week, and I think we prayed a collective of probably 2 hours just in here. And I don't know what it was that came out of me, but I remember I screamed a couple of times, and I just started crying, and it was this huge release and overwhelming happiness that I felt. And then I went home and I developed a headache, and I told John, so he came back over to fix whatever was stirring. And every time we would do a deliverance session, I could always feel something come up, but there would be like a blockage. It would just stop in my throat and it couldn't move. And that's when we broke it. And I could feel like little air bubbles like start coming out, and it was finally done and broken. And ever since last week, I've been eating. I started to eat a little more every day, but I think like 4 days ago is when it started. I've been like eating nonstop. Like once I start, I can't stop. My headaches are they're not as frequent. They're still there, but they're just not as frequent. I used to have trouble sleeping a lot. It was like I could never get enough sleep, and that was even when I was a kid. I feel like when my headache started, that's when it all began. I never felt like I had enough sleep or enough energy. And now I'm not sleeping like 10, 12 hours a day like I always felt like I needed to. I can get like my 8, 9 hours of sleep, and I wake up and I'm ready to start my day. I want to go out, and I have all this energy that I haven't felt since I was a kid. And it's been so amazing. I feel like I have this new life.
Yes.
And it's just awesome.
When she says a kid, I know she's young, but
Like
since she
8,
was- yeah,
like 8 or 9.
10 years,
Yeah.
11 years.
Yeah, I'm 19 now.
Yeah,
I know.
it's powerful. Come on, Jesus! Woo! Amen. Any more?
My anxiety has been fixed too. That's
Amen.
gone. I used to have this. I used to struggle with anxiety and depression, and that's been wiped out completely.
Ah. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to go ahead.
Like I remember I had this really weird fear of the dark. Like if I couldn't walk around the house in the dark. I had to like run for the light switch and flip the lights on. I couldn't be in a dark room. But now I would have this like overwhelming fear and like anxiety. But now, and I used to sleep with my dog, but I still do because now she's used to it. Now when I go to bed, she knows she's coming with me.
Amen. Amen. Good bed partner.
She's little.
But now that's gone. I can walk around and like my room. I can get up and not have to like run for the light switch before something gets me, and that's gone.
Yeah. Praise God. Praise God.
And I think that's it.
Awesome. Come on.